Hello everyone, welcome to another Tomato Sauce stream. Today, you might have noticed we don't have a camera on at the moment. We don't really have anything going on the screen at the moment. And that's because we're going to be starting today by doing something a little bit different. And that is, we are going to be opening something we got in the mail, which is very exciting. Now, fun fact about this is this actually came via one of my neighbors, because this got delivered to the wrong house because the postmen are fantastic. And then a lovely man came around and he said, "Is there someone with my name here?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, this got delivered to my house. I opened it because I didn't realize it was addressed to the wrong person, and it's anime stuff." And so I had to be like, "Yeah, anime stuff is mine. Could I have my anime stuff?" So he gave me this. So this has already been opened, which is a bit of a shame. But this is a lovely little package that we got from the folks over at the Rush Duel Links Discord server. And this is Rush Duel cards. This is our prize, quote unquote, that we got. And as you can see, this is in Japanese, so we won't actually be able to read any of these. But these are my first actual Rush Duel cards, which is pretty cool. So I haven't opened these at all yet, so hopefully these just open easy peasy. I don't really want to destroy the box if I don't have to. But it's looking like there is some tape on one side of this. We'll try and just get that open, because I am super excited for this. I have obviously played Rush Duel for a very long time, but never owned any actual physical cards. So, it's a shame it's peeling off. Oh well, it is what it is. Unfortunately, my giant man hands are too much for this tiny little box. Should look at that. Foil. What's that? Super rare? Mystical Elf Legend. So we're not going to go through all of these, but I just kind of want to show off some of these, because these are my first Rush Duel cards. This is super exciting for me. So we got what we got. Also, this is very awkward to hold to the camera. We got the Elf. We've got our Magnum Overroad, which we are super excited for. I'm sure everyone's pretty sick of that by now. Good old Full Meteor Impact, a card that has done next to nothing at all, pretty much in in either version of the game. Steel Mechlord Mirror Innovator, meta threat right here. We can already build the best deck in the game, which is quite nice. Unfortunately, these aren't super in focus because my big sausage fingers are in the way. But we've got Best Across. We got Best Across Ash. We got Bascule, who we might be getting eventually. There's Splat. What else we got? I can't remember what this one's called. Splame, I think this one's called. It's like the fire one. Oh god, Sonic Attacker. Don't need to worry about him. Why have we got multiple Sonic Attacker? Necromagnana, limit 1 this card. So this card is actually fantastic. And when this card does eventually come to Rush, or Duel Links, it will be just really good. We've got our 1500 Aqua. We've got, what, Vulcan is that called? Doriado, Silverwolf, 2 Silverwolf. Oh, these are actually now kind of in focus. Oh, and just as we say that, we've lost focus. Thunder the Thunder, Fire Golems, Mystic Dealer, Silver Fag. I cannot remember what this card is called, but it's really bad. Stray Familiar. Playset Stray Familiar. We actually do have Pierce, which is quite nice. Type Change Beam, so we can actually use this with our Mirror Innovator. We've got the, what's this card called? Bleach Mortar. Rightful Magic for our Best Across. We've got Stray Familiar. Whatever that card's called. This is the Fire Burn one, right? I forget what it's called. Road Magic something. Cannot remember what this one's called. A card that we still don't have. This is what? Oh, the Raging Conspiracy, I think it's called. In the end, we did end up going through every single card. And then we have this lovely little rules thing, which is quite nice. But yeah, we have Rush cards for the first time ever, which is super exciting. Where's our boy? Best Across. Best Across is obviously the most important card. We cannot have a deck without Best Across in it. But with that said, we will head over to here while we just resort out our camera and everything. And then we will get into talking about all of the really cool news that we have, which I'm sure a lot of you are very excited about. because there is like a lot of stuff to talk about, right? There is a bunch of rush stuff, there's a bunch of speed stuff, some of which is obviously going to be more exciting than others, and obviously different people will be interested in different things, but we'll try and go over all of it as best we can. Obviously, some of the speed stuff isn't going to be like super relevant for us, but you know, in general, we are not... What's the best way to phrase this? Obviously, we're very rush-oriented. We still do play speed, we still do enjoy speed, but we are obviously always going to be a lot more rush-oriented. Where is my camera gone? Going on, camera. Where have you gone? Can we just come over here? There we go. There we go. There we go. There's the camera. She's back. But how is everyone doing after our brief little intermission of opening cards? Who do we have in the chat? We have Coroner, we have Alex, we have Dwan, we have Beam. Welcome, everyone else. Still praying for physical rush in the TCG. I mean, like, fingers crossed, right? But it's getting to the point where it's like, would they release it like 3 to 4 years after it's come out? It's a bit weird. But we do have some news, and that news is very exciting. Oh, by the way, we are just getting over being ill. We have been ill like all weekend, and we are still not quite over that. So if we sound a bit weird, that's why. And also we might not be doing a particularly long stream because of that. But we did want to cover all of the brand new stuff, because, you know, new stuff's cool. Who doesn't love checking out the new stuff? What's going on here? Why is our Chrome like detached? There we go. So let's take a look at our leaks. So the first things first, we got our speed dual links, and some of this is pretty cool, right? We've got Zenith skill, can be use the skills there. You can use the skills second, third, and fourth effects once per turn. So that's already kind of weird, right? We can use these all 3 different effects, and also it's a bit weird that we're getting these, you know, 4-part skills. Like, obviously this is kind of a norm now for a lot of decks and dual links, but it's still so weird for me. But you cannot special summon excluding cards in the extra deck except for 4 mage and level 4 spellcasters. Send 1 perform mage monster from your hand or graveyard, then add a perform mage monster from your deck or polymerization. So that's kind of makes sense. It's just a consistency tool. Return 1 monster from your field to the deck, then set 1 perform mage monster from your deck to your field. So we can set that monster, which means it can still be fused, but we won't be able to do anything else with it. If we control 4, well, actually saying that as well, we can also just flip it up, right? Because that's how skills work. Whenever you set a card with a skill, you can always actively choose to flip it up because it hasn't been summoned this turn. So there's something I also have to try and remember. And if you control 4 face-up monsters, you can reveal 1 poly from your hand. Make all monsters currently in your field be treated as ancient gear monsters. So this is a really cool way to try and like build into that Dennis is an ancient gear player thing, which I think is really cool. If we do somehow make ancient gears meta, I will be really excited with that. But there's that. The Fiend Exchange skill, I'm not really sure what this is supposed to be used with, but can use twice per duel. At the start of your main phase, place a level 5 or higher Fiend monster from your hand and bottom of your deck, draw a card. It's fine. It's a little bit basic, right? But that's kind of it. Get well super. Thank you, Beam. The search and set parts are exactly the same as the other Perform Mage skill. So I looked at the Perform Mage skill when it was released. I haven't done too much into it. I've watched a lot of Perform Mage being played because it was doing quite well for a little bit, but I haven't like read into it too much. Fiend's Exchange will save Infernoid's Bridge. The thing is, I don't, no matter what, I don't think this is going to be enough. When you have quote-unquote good decks that also have these really crazy skills that like do everything for the deck, they'll add all the consistency, banish 2 things from your something, send a load of stuff to the graveyard, shoot it for a card that you want. You get all of these like ridiculous effects on top of like an already good deck, and then you compare it to like, oh, you get a draw for a card from your hand. It's just, I just don't think it's going to be worth it. It's similar for the current FLUFFALS skill that we're using, right? It's just not very good. And this skill is a weird one, right? So we can use the skills second and third effects once per turn. So we cannot special summon excluding monsters from the extra deck, monsters for the opponents, except for opponents' monsters, Edge Imp, Fluffle, or Frightful. So that's already quite bad because the major issue... Oh, Corono subscribing with Prime. We should mute that so we can listen to the lovely subscription music. Thank you so much, Corono. I really do appreciate it when people do support the channel. Because, you know, it's just little old me. Every little helps. And like I said, I do always really appreciate that. It's a W for IDP owners, at least. There is that. So, right, so the main issue I have with this skill is our Fluffle cards are very good at doing one thing. and that is basically OTKing your opponent. So by saying that we're now locked into our own archetype, generally wouldn't be a bad thing, but we don't have that many good tools going first. Even if we do get Scythe and Whale, that's it. That's all we'll have going first. So it'll be that and then trap cards. And Fluffle is already quite an in-depth combo deck that does require a lot of main deck space. So now, just to fix ratios, you're looking at probably playing something like a 30-card deck with a bunch of traps that are going to do all of the hard carrying that you can get. It's one of those problems where, so yeah, no Orcus's cringe, right? I understand that people don't like the Orcust engine. People don't like these generic engines. But Fluffals are a deck that like really does struggle to do everything in engine, right? You'd have to give them a new boss monster to like make up for the difference, or just heavily rely on trap cards. And I'm never a big fan of just jam a load of trap cards in the deck and then use that. I prefer like, you know, a boss monster that has interruptions attached to it, which unfortunately, again, Fluffals just don't really have access to. So this immediately means that you won't be able to play stuff like that. Like in the TCG, that would be things like Apollosa, that would be things like Toad, which I think is actually banned in TCG at the moment. That sort of thing, right? You have these like generic negates because the engine itself is quite good at generating advantage, just putting bodies on the board. Is Frightfur Bear good enough with the last part of the skill? So we'll get to that in a sec, right? So 2, return 1 Edgit monster from your hand or field to your deck, then add an Edgit monster from your deck to your hand. Now this is kind of bad. Basically, you want all your Edgits in the graveyard. You don't want to put them back in your deck. So this is a bit weak, in my opinion. If this was similar to the current skill we have, where we can dump one and then dump another one, that would be a lot better. This is awkward, because you can swap one from your hand into your deck, but you have to already have one. And then you still need to find a way to get it into the graveyard to actually make any use of it, so not a fan of that part of the skill. But then 3, select a Frightfur Bear you control on one monster in your opponent's field, equip it to this card as an equip card, and then it's treated as if it was equipped to it, right? So this effect is pretty good. This is a non-targeting, non-destruction effect, which is very strong, right? So this is very similar, I guess, to like Ding in a weird way. But again, this is very good going second, very, very bad going first. So it's good, right? Non-destruction, non-targeting removal is fantastic. But one, you now have to summon Bear, and Bear has a few problems of its own, being that on its own, it's just a 2200 attack monster. It requires specifically Sabers and Bear, so there's no room for like mixing and matching different Fluffals. You have to very specifically get very specific cards. And again, it's good at doing what it wants to do, which is snatch from your opponent's guys, but it still doesn't give us a good play going first. So all in all, I don't think I would use this skill. Right now, I think just dumping 2 pieces or 2 Edgit monsters is actually better than all of this. Now, I would still love to test this out and find out for myself. But yeah, so far, this isn't enticing me all that much. But more importantly, having a Sora skill here and all these Frightfur and Fluffle stuff does imply that we will be getting more Fluffle cards from a new speed set, which is very, very cool because, you know, we still need Dolphin, we still need the Octopus, we still need Kraken, we still need Cruel Whale, we still need Penguin. There's so many cards. Now, I don't think we're necessarily going to get Patchwork, just because Patchwork is really good generically. You could just play that in any deck to just search Fusion. So I don't think we'll necessarily see that. But, this skill doesn't help the Fluffle turn 1. Exactly. That is always going to be the problem. It's the Cyber Dragon problem, right? Where if you had Cyber Dragon Infinity, oh, you have a turn 1 play. If without Cyber Dragon Infinity, Cyber Dragons doesn't have a turn 1 play, right? It's very awkward. We need Scythe and Whale. Yeah, it's... The problem, again, is I don't know if Scythe and Whale will fix all of the problems. Because the cards that I actually really want... I mean, obviously you want Scythe and Whale. But like cards like Penguin, which just add that extra like layer of consistency and just give you more tools and more extenders, are what I'm really looking for. Like that's the kind of cool shit that I'm after. Again, this... I don't think this skill was super exciting, but I do think the idea of getting new Fluffle cards is going to be exciting. Penguin would be nice here. Yeah, Penguin's what I'm really after, like to be perfectly honest. So then we have this Yugi skill. I don't think this is going to do much, right? To me, this is just flavor. We're getting a Buster Blader skill as we get a Rush Buster Blader skill. So they're probably going to have, like, maybe a campaign or something where they just give everyone, like, a Buster Blader from both, like they did with Blue Eyes and some of the other stuff. I don't know. It's neat. Realistically, I don't think we're going to bother making Dark Paladin and have that be a thing, but Sacred Beast skill. Again, I don't really have much to say about this either. Can be used, third effects will be used once per duel. So it's Hamon, Raviel, or Oriah. You cannot special summon, excluding special summons for the rest of the turn. Effect monsters, except for... Can't be used. Reveal. Return one card from your hand to your deck, then add a monster that lists any of those cards. That could be good if we get all of the Sacred Beast support. Like, that could be playable. So... I'm really enjoying Rockets right now. I mean, yeah, Rockets are popping off right now. I wouldn't be surprised if Rockets got hit, to be honest. All the other Rush OGs were given out via campaign event. So yeah, DM, Blue Eyes, Red Eyes. It would make sense. Buster Blader isn't quite on the same level as those cards, though, right? Like, it's still like a Yugi card, but it's not like... It doesn't have the same notoriety, right, that those other cards have. They're all kind of the big boss monsters. Mind you, even then, Red Eyes is a bit of a weird one for Joey. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. I think this could be potentially playable. I think it, at the very least, is going to be very funny to see what it does. And now we'll get to the Rush stuff. So Rush card. So these skills themselves, some of these skills are okay. But more importantly, it's what they infer that we're going to be getting. I think that's the exciting part about this. So Rush duel skills, Buster Blader skill. This skill can be used if you have at least 5 warrior type monsters in your deck with 2300 or 2600 attack. And if those are the only monsters with 1300 more attack in your deck. Now, let's forget about everything else for now. 2300 or 26, there aren't that many warrior monsters in the game that have those stats. So obviously Buster Blader, right? 2600 attack, warrior monster, that's fine and dandy. We're expecting to get this. Then there's Legendary Swordsman Buster Blader, which is pretty good, right? 2600 attack, 2300 defense, same stats as a Buster Blader. And it's a 2600 attack monster on a main deck monster that isn't a legend, which is very, very good. There are only actually, I think, 2 cards that meet this, and one of them is another warrior, but I don't expect to get that one. That's Guildford the Legend. And the reason we don't expect to get Guildford the Legend is because it specifically is an effect that requires equip spells, and we don't have equip spells yet, so I would not be expecting to get Guildford. But I think this almost guarantees that we're going to get Buster Blader, or Legendary Source Buster Blader. So this card's named because Buster Blader while in the graveyard. And then continuous effect, this card cannot attack directly, but it does gain attack equal to the number of face-up dragon monsters times 500. So it doesn't get attack for monsters in the graveyard, but it does get it for monsters on the field. So this is okay, right? Can't attack directly, kind of sucks, but we can use it with Piercing Samurai, and then just give this thing Piercing, and then that'll deal with that anyway, right? So the other thing is it also works with 2300 attack monsters. So that is Gaia the Fierce Knight. So if it came out right now, I would expect the deck to be what? Buster Blader, 3 Legendary Swordsmen, and then Gaia the Fierce Knight. There are other Gaia cards, but a lot of them are like fusion support cards, so I wouldn't expect to see most of those. The only one we might get is Swift Gaia. Now, I don't know if we necessarily will get Swift Gaia, but it's an okay card, right? 2300 attack. If this card is the only card in your hand, you can normal summon this card without attribute. That's pretty good, right? So it would make sense to me that we might get something like Swift Gaia, but chances are we're going to be using 1 copy of normal Gaia and then, you know, maybe Swift Gaia. The only other support card, really, that we could get for the Buster Bladers is Witness of Dragon Destroyer, which is a nice little level 3 monster, not particularly good important stats, but during the turn you normal summon this card, we can send the top 2 cards of the deck to the graveyard, then we can add a Buster Blader from your graveyard to your hand. So why do we think we're getting this card? First off, it doesn't make sense because we're getting other Buster Blader cards. Second off, if we look at the skill's effect, the last part of it is once per duel on turn 4 onwards, you can also send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard to send 1 level 7 monster from your deck to the graveyard. So there must be a reason that we'd want to be throwing cards in the graveyard, and I think the reason is going to be Witness of Dragon Destroyer, which can just let you back your Buster Bladers or your Buster Blader Legendary Swordsmans from your graveyard back to your hand. It could probably come out with the current power level, e.g. Swift Guy. Yeah, I mean, that would make sense, right? I think it could. But the rest of the skill is... we can change the type of face-up monsters on your opponent's field with 2300 or more attack to dragons and make them lose 500 attack at the end of this turn, which is decent, right? That means we can attack over stuff. And we can, more importantly, gain... by changing it into a dragon, our guy will gain 500, putting it up to 31. Your opponent will then lose 500, which means we can attack over 35s, right? So if there is a 3500 attack monster, we can clear it with this, which is quite nice. And also gaining all of that attack is pretty good with Piercing Samurai as well, because again, we can just pierce over. So the only issue with this is if your opponent just set 3, we won't be able to get any of that boost because this only works on face-up monsters, but you'll still have like a 2600 piercer, right? Which is still really good. Yeah, and it works with the skill restrictions, so it seems likely we'll get it. Yeah, it makes sense to me that Swift Gaia would come out. Now again, there are some other Gaia cards, but they all do things like Fuse, and I don't think... Because I think it was Grand who pointed out that we never get cards in Duel Links that refer to other cards or mechanics that we don't have access to. So because of that, I think we're basically locked into only Swift Gaia and Legendary Sword and Buster Blade for like cards that we can actually get. But all in all, I think it could be kind of cool. I don't think it's going to be like crazy, but I think it'll be fine. The main issue, I feel, might come down to this Asana skill, which we'll talk about when we get to it. But if I forget, remind me, right? Now we'll talk about them in order. We'll go again. We'll go plants. Because plants is an interesting one. Plants are a type that feel like they have all the tools they need, but never really accomplished anything physically. So, compared to the other DM decks, the only thing to note is this skill isn't a consistency boost skill to the card. I think that makes sense because we do have access to effectively 3 more copies of Buster Blader. So we don't have a bunch of cards that require you to have Buster Blader in order for it to work. So Buster Blader, Earth Stuff, Worms, and Plant Shadow Flower, some pretty nice stuff. Well, yeah. Wait, hold up, I still have it. What do we still have, Dragson? What do we still have? I just noticed the attack buff on the plant isn't until end of turn. The question is that just like a typo, or is that actually gonna like stick? I suppose it makes sense for that too, because the other cards do all say until the end of the turn. Alright, well let's take a look at it anyway. This skill can be used if the only monster with 1400 more attack in your deck are plant type monsters. So that's a pretty generous restriction. 1 level 7 Earth attribute plant type monster on your field gains 300 attack. If that monster was a trains that was special summoned this turn, it has to be special summoned, so not normal summoned, and it attacks a monster in defense position during this turn, inflict piercing damage to your opponent. So that is pretty cool, right? Why do I still have my streak when I miss a day? I could not tell you, Dragson. I could not tell you. I did also miss a day, so maybe that was the day you missed. I couldn't tell you. But seems like a lot of hoops to go through for Pierce. You have to have Pierce somehow, right? And a Trains' effect does let you kind of special summon anyway, because if we have any Trains in the graveyard, we can send the plant monster from our hand to the graveyard, special summon a Trains from your graveyard face up to your field, place it on the bottom of your deck during the end phase. This turn, this card cannot attack directly. But so we bring one back, give it 300 attack and piercing, and just having any way to get piercing is always really, really important in the plant deck, right? In any deck, in Rush in general. So we'll talk about some of the plant boss monsters that we could be getting. Now this is a level 8, so this would not be able to receive the boost, so we're just going to throw that out there immediately. But this is kind of the first plant, like major boss, I guess, which is Garland, the True Shadow Flower Ninja. We can place 1 plant monster from our graveyard on the bottom of our deck to special summon a level 7 or lower plant type monster from your hand, face up to your field, but place it at the bottom of the deck during the end phase. And again, this is a special summon, which means if we do summon out the Atrains, we can then use our skill on it, gain that 300, gain that piercing, right? So those are all things we can do. And also, now that we're talking about this, even if the skill doesn't say it until the end of the turn, almost all of our ways to special summon monsters do put them back to the bottom of our deck at the end of the turn anyway, so maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe there will be some cheeky ways, like when Monster Reborn comes out, for example, that we could maintain and keep that buff, but we'll have to wait and see. Mind you, because the buff isn't when it's special summoned, right? It's only the piercing. So no, you get to keep 300 attack anyway. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how this actually ends up when it comes out. If it is permanent, that could be really, really cool. So a more modern boss monster that the deck got is Flower Fang Clematis. We wouldn't necessarily expect this, but I don't know if this is like super, 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 super good. You know, as in so good it wouldn't come out this early. But this is a 2500, 1500 defense. If your life points are equal to or higher than your opponent's life points during the turn you normal summon this card, changes the tap position card to defense position to the end of your opponent's next turn while your life points are equal or lower than your opponent. this card cannot be destroyed by battle. Then if we have 3 or more plants in our graveyard, we can special summon a plant monster from our graveyard. So this is a really good tool. Chances are we wouldn't get this card this early, but there's like a slim chance if plants are like underperforming, we could get this card like in a follow-up pack relatively quick. Because this effect is like, it's good, right? Let's not undersell it. This card is very strong. But is it like super duper crazy good? Nah, it's also only level 8. Then obviously we've already talked about trains, but trains is very, very good. This is also going to be used in a lot of the fusions as we do get access to those cards. But in general, this card's just kind of fine. Then we have another boss monster, Gajumaru the Shadow Flower Lion. So this card's pretty cool. It's just a little bit awkward in how you use it because its effect is very, very specific. We can send one other face-up Earth attribute plant type monster from our field to the graveyard. So it has to be from the field, so that's really a bit weird. But then we can change the original attack of one face-up level 8 or lower Earth. That's where this gets a bit weird, because they have to change the type or the attack of an Earth monster on your opponent's field to 0. So if this works, it's obviously very, very good. If your opponent doesn't have a level 8 or lower Earth monster, this effect basically doesn't do anything. So, yeah. It is also level 7, so if we do special summon this, again, we can give it that 300 boost and piercing, which is okay. Again, this card never really saw any play, because just the fact it has to be an Earth, like, really hurts this. But, maybe. And then we have a very, very interesting boss monster. This is Gatling the Shadow Flower Shinobi. Gatling is a very, very weird card. It only has 2000 attack. It does have 2400 defense. 2400 is a bit mid, right? I feel like we'd probably only get the level 7s based on the skill. I wouldn't be surprised if we got Garland, just because Garland does facilitate level 7s, right? It literally special summons a level 7 or lower plant. So I wouldn't be surprised if we got Garland, just because, again, it specifically does summon level 7s. And again, Clematis does also special summon monsters, but it's not specifically level 7s. So I think these two cards do work quite well with the skill. It's just, I think Garland is more likely because this was one of the very first plant boss monsters that came out, so I think that would make sense. But Gatling itself is a weird card because we can send 2 plant-type normal monsters from our hand to the graveyard. So they have to be normal monsters. Then we can destroy 2 attack position monsters that are level 8 or lower on your opponent's field. So that effect's pretty good, right? We can only pop attack mode. They can only be level 8 or lower. We have to send 2 plants, so it's very restrictive. But then we can also inflict damage to our opponent equal to the number of monsters destroyed times 500. And this turn you can only attack with 1 monster. So it's a very restrictive effect, but this card does also become part of fusions later, which also does make it a lot more playable. Hey, is that the Icy Gamer? Welcome on in, Icy. Give a quick shout out to the Icy. My man, Doom Metal vibes. It's kind of Doom Metal vibes if Doom Metal was like restricted to hell, right? Because this only works on level 8 or lower, only works on attack position, and you have to have a pretty big cost, whereas Doom Metal's kind of free with the skill. So like, it's kind of awkward. But Gatling's like fine. And again, when we do get fusions, this card will see a bit more play. Then we have another more modern boss monster. Again, I wouldn't necessarily expect to see this card because this would be out very, very early. But again, in the physical game, plants never really did anything. So we might see some of these more modern boss monsters get pushed back and, well, like pushed forward and have them earlier. And Neoplandish is one of the better ones. So 2500 attack is obviously just a great stat. It's level 7, so it would work with the skill. We can send the bottom card of our deck to the graveyard, so it's already a bit of a weird one, but there are a lot of cards in the plant deck that do put cards to the bottom of your deck, so now you can basically choose what you want in the graveyard. So you could put, for example, a Trains to the bottom of your deck, and then put a Trains back in the graveyard to be brought out again by another Trains. This turn, this card cannot be destroyed by your opponent's trap card effects. And again, this is an effect we will start to see more and more often as we do get further into Rush. There are new Rush cards. So we have new Rush skill leaks that do hint at specific cards. That's basically what we're doing, and we're kind of speculating based on that at the moment, I see. But then if we sent a plant-type monster to the graveyard to meet this effect, this card gains 700 attack, which will boost this up to 32. And if we do have the skill, this will go up to 35, which is a decent number, right? So Neoplandish, I think, could be a good option to bring out. Again, I don't know if they would bring this out immediately, but I could see this in like the set after or the set after that, right? To be fair, this card could fit into the game with the power level of other decks. I think it could. I think a lot of these cards could, to be honest. Like, especially because I don't think anyone expects plants to actually be good. Therefore, we could really throw some of these cards at them. It's like Cyburst as well. Cyburst was a deck that no one expected to be good. So they gave us Attrashoot Hydron. And Attrashoot Hydron is not a card that was released in the first wave of Cyburst. And that card obviously has boosted that deck to make it a lot stronger than it would have otherwise been. Because when Cyburst originally came out, they basically just didn't have boss monsters. They just had Yggdrago and that was it. They've given other decks some modern cards to help them out faster. Exactly. So I think this is a card that could come out. Next up, we're going to go... That's kind of it for our boss monsters at the very least. Now, we're going to talk about some of just the weaker monsters in the deck. Gecko is pretty cool. During the turn you normal summon this card, pay 500 life points, add an earth attribute plant type normal monster from your graveyard to your hand. So this is basically a seahorse carrier, but for plants. It's pretty cool. We might see some sort of like little engine start to appear, but because it has the 500 life point cost, I doubt we'd see it like overtake seahorse, for example. Chaos Filter and Attribute feels like they are on another level. Exactly. But Gecko is just a good card in general. You'll just probably see the plant deck play this card. I don't know why they wouldn't. And then we have Acacia. Acacia is really cool. If we have a face-up level 7 or higher plant type monster on your field, change one defense position monster on your opponent's field to face-up attack position. Then if you change the monster face-up attack position by this effect, we gain life points equal to that monster's original attack. So if we change a high attack monster to attack, we get more attack. And if we change a high or a low attack monster to attack, we can attack over it and get in for more damage. So it's kind of a win-win. So in general, I think Acacia is just a really strong card. And again, combined with the skill, which gives us piercing as well, if we do get both Acacia and obviously that skill, we'll have plenty of ways to get to our opponent's life points, which is something that the plants often have struggled to do. Acacia is kind of the only real card that we've had to do that. So having access to this and the skill will just be really, really nice for just quality of life. Then we have Lindo. This is basically like, you could say this is like the Candy of the plants, in that a lot of cards reference Lindo. Lindo is also used in, I think, all of the plant fusions, if not all of them, most of them. So Lindo, this is going to be like a key combo piece a lot of the time, but it is just, again, a vanilla monster with actually quite okay stats. But this is going to be an important card for the archetypes, so we thought we'd mention it. We're not going to go through all the vanillas, but Lindo is an important one. Then we have Alparus. Alparus, this is another one of the more modern cards, and there goes the ads. So we will take a quick break while we wait for the ads to finish. Right, 5 more seconds till the ads are over, and then we'll go back to talking about plants. Alright, welcome back everyone who was watching the ads. So we have Alparus the Sower. This is a more modern card, so again, don't expect this, but like there is a chance, right? If you normal summon this card this turn, and the only face-up monsters on your field are plant-type monsters, we can place 1 card from our hand at the bottom of our deck. Send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard, then if a plant-type monster is among the cards sent, we can draw 1 card. So this is a nice way to plus, right? It mills cards into the graveyard, which is generally seen as quite a good thing. In this deck specifically, we'd want something like a Trains in the graveyard, so then we can use another Trains to bring it back, that sort of effect. And if a plant-type monster is among the cards sent, which we would expect it to be in the top 3, we can just draw a card, which is quite nice. Now, we do have to place 1 card from our hand on the bottom of our deck, so we're not technically plussing, right? We're just filtering. But we're also putting cards in the graveyard, which can be quite good, depending on the cards we get access to. Especially when we get access to some of the fusion cards later, there will be more cards that interact with our graveyard, and Alparus will be a lot stronger in those kind of decks. After Chaos Femtron, I think anything is on the table. Yeah, that's why we're talking about it, right? There is a chance we'll get Alparus. It's just not necessarily a super high chance. But if there is a chance, we want to mention it, right? Then we have Jasmine, the Shadow Flower Festival. This is a pretty cool card. If we have a face-up plant-type normal monster on our field, so again, there's that normal monster, this is a thing that plants tend to do quite a lot, as they always are like, do you have a normal monster? And so you always sort of like, well, when I'm building a proper, like, big plant deck, when it's like more full power, Lindo is really the only normal monster you're going to want in your deck, which means getting off some of these effects is going to be a little bit awkward. But if you do get them off, they can be pretty good. So this one is change a defense position monster on your opponent's field to face up attack position, which again, changing monsters from defense to attack position, very, very strong. We can get in for some good damage. Then if a monster is changed to face up attack position by this effect was an earth attribute monster, we can draw a card. So occasionally getting that +1 will be very, very useful. So Jasmine is unassuming, but actually pretty good. This extra bonus effect would be nice if we could like more influence or more easily influence our opponent's attribute, but that's kind of clicking down to luck a lot of the time. And now we'll move on to the spell cards. And the first one is just Invading Nature. It's pretty basic, right? If you have a face-up plant, destroy a spell trap. There's no gimmick, there's no put it back in the hand, no put it to the top of the deck, no put it to the bottom of the deck, no we need 2 cards, no burning, no healing. It's just a straight-up back row hate. And it's fine. I mean, it's not bad. It's probably the preferred type of back row hate that we're going to have, just because A lot of the other ones do have these weird stipulations where sometimes they'll be worse than others. Generally, if a card goes to the graveyard, it's probably going to stay in there, especially if it's a spell or trap card. Unless we get access to like Galactica Jamais Vu in the future, or unless we get Magical Stone Excavation, it's a lot harder to bring those cards back. So, you know, it's a win for the plants. Then we have the Shadow Flower Dance. This is, again, a more modern card, as you can probably tell by the fact it's got a Japanese image. If we have a monster on our field, we can shuffle 3 plant type monsters from our graveyard into the deck to draw 1 card. So again, that probably sounds familiar. It's like Recovery Draw or Recovery Force. But then we can make up to 3 non-plant type monsters on your opponent's field, just 300 attack and defense. Now, 300 is not a ton, but we can do it on 3 monsters. That's effectively like an extra 900 damage. I don't think this card is busted. I think this card could come out. I think it's fine. So that's why it's on the list. That's why I think maybe this card will come out. Then we've got the Shadow Flower Flurry. I really do like this card. We can send a face-up plant monster from our field to the graveyard to change 1 defense position monster on either field to face-up attack position and then draw a card. So this is really cool. Obviously, we -1 to use it, and the card itself is a -1 because we're just using a card. We do replace one of those cards, though, with that draw, which is quite nice. And this can be used to make room on your field. Let's say you have, like, an Atrains out. What you can do is you can send a monster that's in the way away, change your opponent's monster into attack mode, and then use a Atrains effect to bring back another Atrains. Then use the skill, give the new Atrains 300 attack and piercing, attack over a defense mode monster, then use the first Atrains to attack over the newly attack position monster, and get in some good damage and maybe try and close out a game. So I do think this card is actually really cool. I would love to see this card come out, but part of me feels like there are already quite a lot of ways that plants might have to get damage in, so maybe we won't see all of these different types of effects. But I think this is quite a cool card. I would like to see this card come out. Then we're going to go on to Shadow Flower Spore. This is a weird card. So if we have a level 4 or lower plant type normal monster in our graveyard, we can send the top card of the deck to the graveyard to special summon a level 4 or lower plant type normal monster from our graveyard face up to our field, but place it on the bottom of the deck during the end phase. So this basically acts as like getting a monster out from the graveyard. It's kind of like a Monster Reborn for a level 4 normal monster. And this is primarily used to bring back, again, the Lindo so that we can immediately fusion it off, but we can also just use this as tribute fodder. So, like, I think Spore could possibly come out early. I think it would be fine. I don't know if it would actually see a lot of play, just because spell trap space is going to be really, really tight, especially with our 30-card decks. But I think it's fine. I love watching the AI use this card, and probably really, really terribly. Next up, we have Shadow Flower Wish. So if we have a plant-type monster in our graveyard, we can send 2 face-up plant-type monsters from our field to the graveyard, special summon a plant-type monster from your graveyard face-up to your field. So this can bring back any plant monster. It's okay, right? Basically, well, the only way to really get value off this is to summon out a level 7 or 8 monster by tributing 2 monsters. We're still -1 because we've given up the wish, but if we do set the wish early and then just flip it over, it kind of breaks even if you squint at it. So it's not ideal. But if you think about it like doing a huge play, right? You could use this effect, bring back a Trains, use a Trains effect to bring back another Trains from the graveyard. Then later on, when we do get access to something like fusions, we could then fuse both the Trains together because there are 2 different fusions which are made up of double Trains. So there is stuff we can do off of this. I'm not sure like how useful this is going to be. If you think about it like this as well, though, if we are able to summon something like Garland, we could summon out the Garland, then use its effect to bring back in a Trains from the graveyard. Then use a Trains effect to bring back a Trains from the graveyard. And then we've got a triple boss body board off of just Shadow Flower Wish. So like there is still stuff you can do there. The only negative with that is going to be your triple boss board is only a 25 and 2 23s. Now one of those will be able to gain 300 attack, so it'll be a 25, a 23, and a 26, but that's still not a huge board, right? It's still not going to be easily able to just break any opponent's board. I feel like a weaker version of all the other spells that special summons boss, but those only do it from the hand. Yeah, I mean, basically, right? So we can turbo our graveyard and then just start bringing stuff back and toolbox in the graveyard quite a bit, which is quite a good thing that plants can do. Next up is Laughing Grass. This obviously works with the grass card that we already have access to. But when your opponent normal summons a monster, we can special summon a plant type monster from our hand, face up to our field. Then if we special summon a plant normal monster by this effect, you can special summon 2 level 1 plant type normal monsters from your graveyard, face up to your field. So this card is awkward because basically you want to be in a situation where you have to leave a normal plant in your hand. You have this set on the field, and then you want your entire field empty to make so you have room to summon all of these cards. So realistically, not a very good card, but I thought I'd mention it. Then we get onto the good trap cards. So this is Shadow Flower Return. When an opponent's monster declares a direct attack, we can shuffle 3 plant-type monsters from our graveyard into the deck to destroy the attacking monster. So this is a Sakuretsu Armor, which is really good. This is like kind of a halfway point between like Dark Revelation and Sakuretsu armor, so it's pretty good. Then if you destroy the monster by this effect, you can special summon one plant-type monster from your graveyard to your field in face-up attack position. So it's not only gets rid of one of your opponent's cards, not only does it refill your deck by putting lots of plants back into it, but also we get to get out a monster, ideally a boss monster. So very, very, very strong trap card. And as we do get fusion monsters, we will get a monster that lets us recycle this trap card and reset it to our field from the graveyard, which is very, very good. Konami releasing a non-legend trap that destroys a monster would be a surprise. They're very careful about that. The thing is, this card has to come out eventually, if for no other reason than... what's it called? Shadow Flower Return. Can't remember what the actual... Yeah, this guy. This guy's going to come out at some point, right? Javelin ducks the Shadow Flower Piercer. And this guy's effect is, destroy a face-up monster on your opponent's field, then you can set a Shadow Flower Return from your graveyard. But they can't release Javelin ducks without releasing Shadow Flower Return. So it's going to have to come out eventually. It's will they bring it out on the first wave of support, or will they wait until the fusion comes out is the question. But as we've seen, Konami is very, very hesitant to release good trap cards, period, right? They just really don't like releasing good trap cards. And generally, if they do, they slap a limit 1 on them, or they only give us 1 copy. So it does make it very difficult. AO, this trap is insane. It is very, very strong. What the fuck did they do to that Dennis skill? They can only play before major spellcasters, 1 to 3 effects, last effect, make them ancient gears. Yeah, it is very, very weird. I mean, the ancient gear part of it is cool, I think. I don't know... I'd rather Dennis had, like, a pure ancient gear skill, rather than a let's try and mix it all together. But, like, I think Konami like to try and do these skills that try and mix all this shit together. Like, they did it the same in Rush with the Royal Roman skill, and no one used it because it was bad. Because mixing psychics with fiends, turns out, isn't very good. And in the same way, you know, Performer Pals and Ancient Gears don't really work together. Who would have thought? Or sorry, Performer Pals is it's Perform Mages. But yeah, it's It'll be interesting to see what they do with it. Then the next trap we've got is the Shadow Flower Stance. This is the only other traps that plants get. So, But when an opponent's monster declares an attack targeting your face-up plant-type monster, we can place 2 plant-type monsters from our graveyard on the bottom of our deck. So again, put them to the bottom can be very relevant for specific card effects, as well as just refilling our deck. Change all attack position monsters on your opponent's field to face-up defense position. Now this is very, very, very strong, right? This is kind of like another negate attack. So this sort of effect, if it does come out, could be absolutely nutty. But these are the only 3 traps that plants get, so surely we've got to get one of them, right? We can't just have no traps. They wouldn't do it like us again, right? Not after what they did with dinosaurs, where they just gave us no dinosaur traps, and then lo and behold, dinosaurs are a bit mid. Seems like it'd be fun to try. Oh yeah, those kind of skills are always fun, but they're not competitively viable. I think that's the issue. The only way Konami knows how to make good gears, I feel like Konami have the power to make whatever skills they want, and if they really wanted gears to be good, they could just do it, right? Royal Roman, I don't think we'll see any of them at launch besides the crappy grass one. Laughing Grass is ass, though. No one wants this card. It's even got ass in the name. That's just how ass this card is. You can choose the order, so you know the exact card at the bottom. If we get Stance, we should also get the guy that needs it. So Stance did originally come out before Javelin Ducks. And, you know, Return and Stance, because both of these trap cards can be set using some of the fusion monsters. Lolweed, that is the... I don't think that's the current English text on grass. But in the original Japanese, the translation... Oh, no, it is. Oh, it's Lolweeds is the text we have on here. This used to be just Lolweed. And then, you know... Oh no, it got replaced, didn't it? To this. However we pronounce this. No, the main deck monster you mentioned that does something with the bottom of the deck. Oh, we talked about where is he? Neoplandish is who we're talking about. Then yeah, we can send the bottom card of our deck to the graveyard. I assume that's what we're talking about. There's also ones that like put cards to the bottom, such as it trains, shuffles it to the bottom of the deck, or puts it to the bottom of the deck. And then there's also Garland, who puts it back to the bottom of the deck. Alright, so that is all of the plant stuff done. So if we go back to the skills again, we'll take a look at our Yuga skill. Yeah, so that's all on screen. So this skill can be used if you have at least 8 maximum monsters in your deck, and the only monsters with 2100 or more attack in your deck are warrior or spellcaster type. So this is really a bit of a weird one, because this doesn't restrict us to doing anything, right? Like, the warrior type kind of signifies that we want to be using this with Vulcan, but like, how much is Vulcan's just middle attack? It's 1500, so that doesn't actually restrict us. We could use any maximum of this anyway. So it's a bit weird that it's like that, I guess, even though this is probably meant to be the Vulcan skill. Up to 2 face-up maximum monsters with 1500 less attack on your field gain 1000 attack until the end of your opponent's next turn. Then you can place 1 maximum monster at random from your deck with a different level from those monsters at the top of your deck. So this is kind of a slow consistency skill, right? We get to search our deck for like the 3rd piece we want, and we can also make up to 2 face-up maximums with 1500 less attack on our field, gain 1000 attack. In a weird way, would this not be an okay skill? So consistency-wise, you could use this with something like Dynamix, but then you'd still miss out on the fact that you still can't beat set 3 pass. So like, you need a way to beat set 3 pass, otherwise your deck sucks. That's just how it goes, right? There are decks that can beat set 3 pass, and then there are bad decks. So like, if you know, you would then have to include Pierce or Stop Defense or something, right? You just have to. 2 maximum monsters in the field, yes. Yeah, so the idea is you'd like, because the dinosaurs, for example, have 2300 attack side pieces. So you can boost them by 1000 and put them up to 23. 1300 attack side pieces, so you boost them to 23. So like, that's not awful, right? 2300 attackers is pretty cool, but like, you still can't beat set 3 pass. The pieces count. It doesn't say maximum mode. Dino rise up with Yuga skill. I mean, that's the thing, right? I don't... It's a weird one. I mean, we'll talk about Vulcan, because, I mean, we've spoken about this card a few times already. I'm not a big fan of this maximum, but like, it exists. So 900 attack, warrior maximum. We can send the top card of the deck to the graveyard. 1 face-up monster opponent's field loses 800 attack. Then you can destroy a field spell. If you destroyed a field spell, inflict 800 damage. So it's sort of just like anti-worm, I guess, in a weird way. You know, weaken a monster by 800, burn for 8. It's nice, I guess. Middle piece can't be destroyed by trap cards. Maximum attack is only 33, which is very, very low. Regular attack is only 15, which is very, very low. And then we have the R piece, which is while a maximum mode, we can send top card of the deck to the graveyard. 1 face monster on either side of the field loses attack equal to its level times 100. And then inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's level times 100. So it burns and it weakens. That's all this maximum does. It's nothing crazy, right? 1900 and 1600 pieces are pretty decent. I mean, I don't know if I'd say decent. I would say they're not useless. Yeah, Vast Vulcan is a very boring card, in my opinion. It's not super exciting. It doesn't really accomplish a whole lot, so like... neat. And again, this skill doesn't even specifically need you to use Vast Vulcan, so... you can even just put, like... high attack warriors in your deck if you really wanted to. You could play like Vast Vulcan alongside Yami Ruler, right? Yeah, you could just play Yami Ruler and well, you won't be able to because Vast Vulcan will be limit 3. But you know, there is that. It's going to be so funny having Vast Vulcan middle piece limit 3, but we're gonna have it, right? Dinosaurs seem better with the skill than Vulcan. I mean, probably Vulcan at least can burn your opponent, so that's something. Dinosaurs. Like, again, they just can't beat set 3 pass. It's very awkward. It's meh, but it would make sense that we get it because it's a warrior. I mean, yeah. And then we'll go down to the worm skills. And this first skill is meaningless. This is just the generic add your ace to your deck. Now, this skill is where we're cooking, right? So we just made a video talking about what kind of Asana skill we could get. And one of the things we said was, we need a way to either change a monster from defense mode to attack mode, we need piercing, we need something to get damage in. That has always been the worm's major weakness. This skill can only be used if the only monsters in the deck are worm types. So that's already quite a harsh restriction, but a fair harsh restriction, right? Realistically, the skill does so much that only having to use worms is a very minor cost. Especially if we get all the ones we're expecting to get, it won't matter too much. So effect, one face-up monster on your field gains 100 attack. Now that 100 attack can get annoying, because if we don't have access to our field spell, our guys will now cap out at 26. And 26 is a problem because this motherfucker is going to be walking around. And this guy's going to be walking around. So if 26 monsters, bear in mind the deck will be able to have 4 of these in it, become like a relatively played deck, if we don't have access to our Peaks of Blistopia, we're going to be struggling to like clear those monsters, which is very awkward. I hope all is well. Hello, Demoni Yu-Gi-Oh! Welcome on in. Oh, we are a little bit ill today, but we wanted to come on and stream and talk about the new stuff, so we thought we'd do this for a little bit. But yeah, this skill is still good, right? 100 extra attack still means you'll clear everything else outside of them using back row. Obviously, we still can't clear over like a Blue Eyes White Dragon, but that's kind of whatever it is. But then, if we have 10 or less cards in our deck, we can apply the following effect. If that monster attacks a defense position monster, during this turn, inflict piercing battle damage. Now that in itself is great. Now, this whole like 10 or less cards in deck thing is awkward. We can use the maximum to basically draw multiple cards a turn to try and dig through our deck, I guess. But it still can be a little bit awkward to get this off. But it does make sense. It's such a powerful effect that I think if we just got piercing willy-nilly, that would be too good, right? It still feels a bit gross. Like, it feels kind of harsh. But, again, if this is how they feel they have to have it to balance it, then I guess I'm okay with it. They went with the safe option for field spells, not giving us Silver Mountain or Autumn Leaves. See, I don't think Silver Mountain's that great. I actually think Peaks of Blistopia is better. But we'll talk about that in a second. Then if we have activated Peaks of Blistopia this turn, we can add a level 3 or level 10 monster from our graveyard to our hand, max 1 maximum monster per duel. So we can use this effect multiple times a duel, but we can only get back maximum piece 1 time. So that's actually pretty interesting, because that means if we do have level 3 worm monsters, we can keep getting them back, which is actually pretty cool. Level 10 doesn't really matter because that's only giving maximums. Peaks of Blistopia, though, is very, very strong. Being able to give 400 attack and minus 400 defense is very, very good. That means our boss monster is now 29. Our maximum gets an extra 400, which isn't super relevant, but can be. More importantly, our lower level monsters, our level 4 monsters, are now 1900 beaters, which is very, very good, because that now means we could just haphazardly throw them out, and like we can out-aggro decks, for example. So I think Peaks of Blistopia is a fantastic card, and since this isn't a skill giving it us, that means we know that Peaks of Blistopia is going to be a card available from a booster pack, so we will have access to that. Now, what they could do to like restrict us if they want to be really cheeky is make this an Asana level up reward, and then limit the amount we get, so that it could put like 2 copies of Peaks of Blistopia as Asana level up rewards, which would be so gross, but they could do it. And it's not like it's outside of the realm of possibility that Konami would think of doing something like that. I hope they don't. I hope we just get 3 copies of this card. But field spells have always been in a bit of a weird spot. Now, for worms, it doesn't matter as much because you can pop your own field spell if you get extras and draw cards off of your maximum. So that's at least something you can do to use extra copies of the field spell. For a lot of other decks, they tend to only run like 2 copies in a 40-card deck because you don't want to be drawing into those extra copies of field spells. It kind of hurts. So we'll have to see what actually happens with that. Obviously, you could still brick on this card by just opening 3 copies of this card and have no way to get rid of it. So you just like slam 3 of them down, force 2 of them into the graveyard, and then hope that your last one does get popped. That could also kind of suck though. So it's very awkward. But this skill kind of does everything we need it to do. It gives us a boost so we can deal with monsters that are 2600 or 2500, I should specifically say. It also lets us gain piercing, and it gives us a little bit of consistency so we can get our maximum off more often. This feels like the most balanced version of this, where every single good part of it is counterbalanced by something that kind of sucks, but in the end it ends up feeling very good, right? I think overall, this skill could be really, really strong. And then we get a bit of a weaker skill, the Asana skill 3, but this skill is still kind of interesting. So this skill can only be used if the only monster with 1400 more attack in your deck are Constructor Worm, Bill Dragon, Shield Boring Kong, and Beast Drive Mega Elephant. The first thing I will say is this Beast Drive Mega Elephant image is wrong. This card has 2500 defense, so you can see that kind of written, like, on the text. But 2500 defense monster does not make this card any better. It is unfortunately very bad. This is an Earth Beast monster, and beasts have oftentimes gotten the short end of the stick in Rush. It's very disappointing. But if we have a level 6 or lower beast type normal monster in our graveyard, we can send one card from our hand to the graveyard, special summon a level 6 or lower beast type normal monster from your graveyard face up to your field. Then, if you have 3 or more beast type normal monsters in your graveyard, you can draw a card. So this is not great. Unfortunately, this card is just flat out bad. Now, there is some cute stuff you can do with this card specifically, but I don't even think you'd be able to find room for this card. Realistically, probably on 3 Worm and 3 Kong, because Kong is actually a decent card. During the main phase that you normal or special summon this card, you can destroy a face down, has to be a face down, defense position monster on your opponent's field and then gain 1000 attack. So that is a pretty good way to get damage in, right? You pop one of your opponent's monsters, then you get to attack, and get that third attack in. So effectively, you don't need like a piercing effect, right? Shield Boar and Kong will handle that on its own. We can also use Earth Legend monsters, which is a bit weird. But then this can be activated during the turn you have normal summoned the level 8 Earth attribute monster. Again, all of these are specifically level 8 monsters. We can change one attack position monster in your opponent's field to face up defense position. So Shield Boar and Kong won't be able to pop that card because it will already be face up. But we can still change a problematic card to defense mode if we want to. If not, we could just use Shield Boar and Kong to like pop something. This is where this gets a bit weird for me because I don't know how many different monsters we're going to want to change to defense mode. In which case you could just have like no skill or like any other generic skill and this would be better than this. So I'm not really sure what we're going to do with that. It's a weaker deck but still a fun skill. We get a beast with the character that gets field spells, Beast Gear World, Copium incoming. A year too late, but nice. I mean, it's a weird one, right? All in all, what this skill does is it lets you change an attack position monster to defense position. I don't know how good that is. Like, Build Dragon already has 2500 attack. If you're going to use its effect, realistically, you'll be playing this with Peaks of Blistopia anyway. In which case you'd have a 29, so you can attack over everything anyway. It's a weird one. I don't think this skill is actually that good. I think if you wanted to play these cards together, you could just play a more generic skill like Hammer Crush Deal or Life Point Gain. It's a low tier deck. Yeah, but even as a low tier deck, I think you can build this better than using this skill. I don't think changing attack mode monster to defense mode is worth it. I think I'd rather gain 1000 life points or rather, you know, set Hammer Crush and draw a card. I think that's the issue of this, is this doesn't do enough for me to warrant playing it. But then we go on to Asana skill 4. This skill can be used if the only monster with 1200 or more attacking the deck are one type monsters. One Constructor Build Dragon or a face up normal monster that is not level 4 on your field gains 300 attack. So yeah, that's nice. 300 attack, nice. If that monster is Constructor Princess Pylon, you can return one card from your hand to the deck to add Peaks of Blistopia from your deck or graveyard to your hands. This lets us recycle the field spell, which is quite nice. It also does confirm we're getting Constructor Princess Pylon, which is a fusion material card. It doesn't really do anything other than it's a fusion material card, but like, if we use it on this is how we get our Peaks of Blistopia, so we're forced to run a bad card, basically. That's kind of fine. Earth Legends, so probably Buster Blader. The only other would be like Behemoth or Alien Shock Trooper. Alien Shock Trooper confirmed! Bring out Alien Shock Trooper! I would love to see Alien Shock Trooper come out, just because I really like the Reptile cards. So when the Reptile cards come out, I am going to naturally be very excited. I think this is fine. We did predict we were going to get some sort of skill to help us get our field spells. And there it is. It doesn't look like it's anything super special, but it's fine. I think this will see some experimentation. I don't know if this will end up being the de facto skill, just because not being able to beat set monsters is still very awkward. But this is still pretty cool. We'll have to see what ends up happening with it. I am looking forward to testing with this. I do think Asana skill 2 is probably going to be the go-to worm skill, but Asana skill 4 could have something there. We'll have to like I say, test it and see what happens. Asana skill 5 is a weird one. So before your normal draw, if your opponent controls a face-up level 5 or higher monster once per duel, one of the cards for your normal draw will be Constructor Princess Pylon or Peaks of Blistopia, your choice from your deck. So you can get Tribute Fodder or you can get your field spell. This turn you cannot attack with level 7 or higher worm type monsters. So this is awkward, right? It's very awkward. I don't really like this, but like maybe there's going to be something you can do with it. Yeah, that's kind of it for that. Then we just have the event skills. There's not really much to talk about these. Like, we know that we're getting, what, turbo duels and tag duels. Neat. And I think that's kind of it, right? Like, let's do a quick refresh to make sure nothing new's come out. But I guess just to do a quick rundown of everything we talked about. Dennis skill, funny. I don't think this is going to be particularly good, but maybe. Fiend Exchange just looks bad. Sora skill. I'm excited for new Fluffle cards. I do not think this skill is going to be particularly good, but again, we will have to try it. I think the main issue is that the Fluffle cards in Engine do not do anything going first, so it could be a bit awkward. I think we end with skill 2C, build around getting the deck empty quick, or stall till we get 10 less cards. Yes, I think depending on the cards we get, because there is a... what's it called? It's like Shibe? Yeah, this guy. Demolitions Soldier, a Shibe BK could be pretty good if it does come out. Which is if we have 2 or less monsters on our field, we can send cards to the top of the deck equal to the graveyard equal to the number of face-up 1 monsters on your field times 2. So this basically mills 4, which could be quite a good way to empty the deck. Then if we have 2 more monsters among the cards sent, this turn this face-up card produces 2 tributes to the tribute summon of a 1 monster in attack position, which is also quite a nice little bonus, right? We get to tribute this as 2 tributes. So hopefully we'll get this card and make that a bit easier, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm not too excited about the Sacred Beast or the Yugi skill, to be honest. And then going over the Rush Duel skills, I think the Buster Blader skill could be quite good. This deck has good statted monsters with okay effects. The skill is actually not terrible, just being able to boost attack. We don't need piercing built into the skill because we're not having sad music. Let's put some. We're not having ominous music either. That'll do. So, because we already have access to Piercing Samurai, because these are all warrior cards, we can already have access to Piercing. So just gaining a load of attack is actually pretty good. I think this is potentially going to be quite a good deck. Plants, again, it's going to depend on what cards we get, but this skill, again, is potentially a good skill. We'll have to wait and see which cards exactly come out. Obviously, we get the trap cards. This deck is going to go hard. If we don't, it will be a bit weaker. This skill seems a bit mid. There's not really much to say about it. I mean, I'm pretty excited for people to try out dinosaurs with this, but give us a dinosaur skill. We don't want to keep piggybacking off of other skills. I don't think Vulcan's going to be very good. This is pointless. This is exciting. This is pointless. This could be okay, but I'm not going to get my hopes up, and I think this is pointless as well. That's kind of where we're at. I think Worms, Plants, and Buster Blader are going to be the 3 to look at. These are going to be the, wow, which one of these 3 is going to end up being really good. Out of the 3, I think, as weird as it sounds, I actually think Buster Blader might be a bit of a sleeper. Buster Blader has a way to get big damage in. Warriors in general are quite good because they have access to something like Piercing Samurai, and they have some pretty good trap cards available. It will depend on what gets limit 3'd in this deck. If, for example, Legendary Swordsman Buster Blader gets limit 3'd to try and stop people from using the Dragius, that could complicate things because then we wouldn't be able to use our back row hate. We'd have to rely on the trap card. So, yeah, I think the Buster Blader skill is generally quite good. I think this might be the thing I'm actually most looking forward to. This skill is good. It's just got so many restrictions on it that I think it's going to be weird to play. And plants are... I think plants are going to be very high skill cap. I think people will look at this and be like, oh, this looks pretty simple. And then when you end up shuffling a load of your boss monsters to the bottom of your deck at the end of the turn, you're going to be like, oh god, where did my field go? So I think it's going to require quite a delicate hand to make the plants work well. We'll have to see what actually ends up happening with that. But that is basically it. The only other thing we kind of want to talk about is Deck Modification Pack Dynamic Eternal Live. And that is just because a lot of the cards that we're getting, and a lot of the cards we already have, are from this pack. This is kind of where we're at right now. As you can see, there's a lot of plants. There are some insects. We do also have some of the Royal Rebel cards in here as well. So this might also indicate some of the other cards that we might be getting soon. So there is some Summon Skull support. There is also some Fire Dragon, a bit more plant. Vice Jacket is a card that we could get quite soon. And Night Vision is a card we have been expecting for a little while. We are obviously getting the other cards that do come along with Asana and the Heavy Cavalry Duel Club. So one of the other members from that is the Night Vision Duelist, which is Trapigeon. So we could see Night Vision coming out, as well as, I don't think the card's actually in here, but there is a couple of the insects from here. The other thing we could get is some of the bug cards. The Ants, Ant Rebellion. I'd like to say, look at, Ice Age Catapult and be like, oh, maybe we'll get this card, but I don't think we're going to, just because we're already quite behind on Yuga. We still haven't got Savage Claw Tiger, which is, one of his Earth cards. But, I just thought we'd, look at this briefly. But that's kind of it for that. Now, Aquas and Zombies are in the mud at the moment. Beast Gears as well. Yeah, it would be nice for us to get more support for some of this stuff, but unfortunately, that's just not really how that goes sometimes. And, unfortunately, I am feeling very, very, very rough. We've only been streaming for an hour, but I did say we were going to do a shorter stream today because I am still unwell, and I think pushing myself past this is not going to be great. So, I guess we'll be back on Thursday, even if it might be another shorter stream if I'm still not better, but I've been ill for like 4 days. So fingers crossed, I'm on the mend. The fingers crossed I'll be completely right as rain by Thursday. And we will probably be playing some speed while we wait for the new Rush stuff to come out. I hope you feel better. Thank you, JD Scrub. Hopefully we feel better, right? That's the ultimate goal. But yeah, we'll be back on Thursday. Hopefully a normal regular stream playing some speed. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.